Yo, this is part 2 of a two-part tier list video. So I will link the first part if you haven't seen it in the description, so you can go watch that first. Alright, so let's begin. Okay, so to start out D tier, I'm gonna put the Arthur on here. You probably saw it coming, but it's very similar to the Vault. It's very easy to use, but it's pretty lacking in the stats compared to all the other weapons competing for the same sort of spot. It's just another weapon where you could say to use the Nemesis instead. I just don't see a reason to use this weapon at the moment when, as I said, Nemesis or G7. Even at close range, it's just not the best anymore. If you can, you should just use an R9 and get like a longer range weapon as your primary. Or even just another rifle, anything. Just to not use this weapon. And then coming up after the Arthur one, or not after, but in the same tier, Spitfire. You could say this weapon's better or worse than the Arthur one. It's just kind of lacking again. Awful hipfire, really good mag size, and of course like damage per mag. But just don't use this weapon. It's not good either. It's just lacking in everything other than the mag size and damage per mag. It's somewhat easy to use at longer ranges, but of course just use a different weapon that does a lot more. Ammo type it, just choose through ammo. And a lot of the time you're not going to get the damage in the mags to be worth using. Coming after that, there's the Alternator. People carry on saying this weapon's underrated. It's really not. It's fine. There's not much reason to keep this weapon. It's got good damage per mag for an SMG. It's pretty usable at the mid-ranges because of how easy the recoil is. And the hipfire can be pretty good if you can handle it well. It's similar to the flatline, so it's only horizontal, but it's still kind of awkward to manage if you're only using other weapons. I mean, overall this weapon's just easy to use, but it's not excelling at anything at all. Okay, after that, we have the triple take. This weapon got buffed decently in this season, I believe it was, and it has made the weapon feel quite a lot better, but it's still lacking something. I'm not sure what it is, but I feel like just something feels off about this weapon. You could argue this goes in C tier, but I just haven't had enough experience and I haven't seen anyone using this weapon to really put it in C tier. Definitely might need a few more buffs to compete with the other marksmans, but it's definitely a lot better than before at least. So next up we have the Sentinel, another long range weapon. The issue with this weapon is just the fact that it's the Sentinel. Similar to the Kraber, it's a bolt action sniper, so it takes a long time to chamber the gun so you can fire again. And the damage boost compared to the longbow for the time you have to spend getting ready for the gun to shoot again is just not worth. Of course, when you charge it up, I'd say this weapon would go up a tier also. When you charge it up, the damage boost is pretty noticeable, but at the same time you also have to use your heals for it. So, it's kind of 50-50. Although I guess an upside is that, the sniper mag isn't as important because you just need to be hitting your shots. But the problem is that if you're not hitting all your shots, you're kind of just... You should just be using a different weapon, I feel like. And so to round off D tier, we have the Mastiff. If this weapon has no bolt or anything, then it's just E or F. But the only reason I'm putting this weapon here is because when you have a purple bolt, maybe even a blue one, this weapon feels so much better. And it becomes somewhat usable. Still worse than the other shotguns, but it becomes a usable weapon. This weapon still needs its extra shot back and probably a bit of speed with the lower rarity bolts or no bolt, but it shouldn't take too long to come back up to speed. They probably should just buff it back to how it was before they put it in the care package and nerfed it when it came out. But yeah, hopefully this weapon gets to a usable spot soon. And we're approaching the end of the tier list, so you can probably guess the sort of weapons that are in here because every other video of a tier list has these sort of weapons down here. This is probably a more controversial one, but I'm going to put the RE here. This weapon is definitely overrated to an extent. I see a lot of people that are saying this weapon's really good, but there's no reason to use this gun, especially when the R99 has it beat in almost every single way. The only time I'd imagine using this gun is if you got all the attachments, which is another thing. You need the attachments for it to be even, remotely usable. And other than that, it's just a off-drop weapon, which I'd still want to replace with something else. And then after that, there's the Mozambique. The Mozambique has gone so much better recently. Or not recently, it's more like past few years. But, this is kind of just a budget wingman. And of course the wingman's fallen a bit from how it used to be, so it kind of resigns down here. If you have it maxed out, then it's a decent weapon. I'd probably put it up to around D or C, low C if I ranked it based off that. But when it's got nothing on it, it's just worse wingman. It's kind of mediocre. But it can still make a splash at close or mid ranges off spawn. And we're approaching the quite literal end of the tier list. So, you know, if you enjoyed, please leave a like or comment and subscribe and all that jazz. Unimportant stuff. And of course, the devotion. This weapon is just straight up terrible when you have no attachments. You know, you have to charge it up slowly. You have LMG strafe speed, so if you ADS, you're just a turret. Of course, the DPS is insane once it gets charged up, but you need all the attachments practically for it to be a good weapon. And even so, just use the Nemesis. This weapon is basically just an attachment holder for the Nemesis. And that's about all. And to end off the video, we have the P2020. This is pretty obvious why it's here. You know, it's got decent damage per mag, but it's just not a good enough weapon. Even with all the attachments on it and the hammer points and everything, it's kind of just mid. And just, you know, it's just bad. There's not much to say, it's just a bad weapon. So yeah, that's all for the tier list. So do all the stuff I said earlier. I didn't plan this out very well, I'm pretty stupid. So yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.
Sorry that I move slow, falling so I drip slow. 10 toes down with the Uzi on the pavement. See the money, grab that money, cut it shit, case closed. Zeros with the commas in the bank, I want this close. G to the B to the N to the O, I got